Hello, friends. It's time for step 5, the last step in introducing your kid to a gluten-free and casein-free diet. This last step doesn't mean the end of me talking about it. If you have questions, I will be happy to make videos for you and answer them. But it's the last one major thing you need to do. So, step 5 is to introduce your child to brand new foods. This is really scary for a lot of parents because a lot of our kiddos are already super picky and have already shot us down a million times when we've introduced foods in the past. So I have 3 things that I want you to remember. I want you to remember, first of all, that you need to accept little victories. Second thing I want you to remember is to make it kid friendly. And the third thing is to eat it yourself. All right, so when we talk about accepting small victories, this means that eating the food is not the only goal. So, I read this on a blog actually, and I don't remember whose it was. I think it was one of my Twitter mama friends. So if it's your blog, leave us a link so we can all go visit you. She said that with her child, it's so difficult to get him to try new foods that she had all these steps. The first step was to leave it on your plate through the meal, or by your plate, I think. And then the second step was on your plate. The third step was to touch it sometime during the meal. Fourth step was to lick it. The fifth step was to put it in your mouth and then you can spit it out. And then she had them like chew it and then spit it out and then finally swallow it. My kiddo is not that picky and not that difficult. Plus, I don't think the power struggles would be worth it. With me trying to force him to put it in his mouth, he just wouldn't do it. So with my son, the easiest way to do it is to be relaxed about it. So, no, you cannot have a cookie. Those are for your brother. For us, the easiest thing to do is to just say, I have this new food for you to try, and you plunk it on his plate. And he is really good about leaving it there, but he doesn't necessarily eat it. For example, we did cupcakes for him, gluten-free cupcakes. And I have this little mini cupcake maker that's a lot of fun, so I made all these little tiny cupcakes, and I put chocolate icing on them, and they were all gluten-free and casein-free. And then I put it on his plate, and he ignored it. So then later that day, I showed him his cupcake again, and I said, look, Mama made you a cupcake, and it's delicious. And I took some bites of one, and then I put a new cupcake on his plate, and he took the marshmallow off, saw that there was frosting on it, put it back, and that was it. The next day, he ate the marshmallow off. And then later that day, he ate the frosting off with his fingers. And then later that day, he licked the frosting off a cupcake. He never did get around to eating it. So that brings us to our other tip. After 2 or 3 days of trying a food, I tend to say, okay, we're going to give it a little break. Because even if I like the food, I probably don't want to have it more than 3 days in a row. So I put it away, and in 2 or 3 days, I bring it back out. So I have a whole bunch, I'll show you, I have a whole bunch of little tiny cupcakes in my freezer like this, ready to go. Repeat. If I decide I want to try them on cupcakes again, and we'll probably do this, tomorrow or Friday. Have him try again. But you're not always going to be successful, and you need to understand that. He loved waffles, Eggo waffles, before we started the diet, and he adored them. And when we started the diet, I bought waffle mix, and I made him some, and he tasted it and would not eat anymore. So then I bought him frozen waffles that look a lot like Eggos, and he tasted it and wouldn't eat it. I think it has to do with the fact that we haven't found a margarine we like yet, but one of you great viewers just recommended one that we will try to pick up this weekend. And I give him waffles for 2 or 3 days with his eggs, and if he doesn't eat them, I don't make a big deal about it. If he tastes it, I say, oh, thank you for trying that, and was it good? And I try to talk to him about it, even though he doesn't really talk back. And then after 2 or 3 days, I put the waffles away, and we don't try again for a few days. There's no harm in doing that, and I think it helps reinforce the fact that just because you say no to the food this time doesn't mean you're never going to have it again. Okay, we were going to talk about making sure that it's kid-friendly. You would be surprised at the things your child will eat after they've seen another child eat it. So even if your kid is like mine and they're not in preschool yet and they're not in daycare, He still goes to a little like play group at church, and sometimes they have snack. And if the other kids are all eating something for snack, like the last one was mini marshmallows. He had never really liked mini marshmallows, he liked the big ones. And then the other kids were eating them, and so now if I give him mini marshmallows, he eats them because other kids did. Um, and not just that, but kid-friendly foods are fun to eat. So you can pick it up and pop it in your mouth. It's little, it's not too big of a bite, um, or it looks like a food that they like. For example, I have tried these and they're okay, but they're no substitute for a chocolate bar. It's like a chewy cookie bar, I'd say, and it's by Enjoy Life, and it's called a Coco Loco bar, and this is what the packaging looks like. Oh, I should hold it the right way. Can you see that? Anyways, there's the Coco Loco part. He loves them, and I don't think they taste fabulous. I'd probably rather have one of his Kinney 2s, which are by Knick Foods, and they're like an Oreo. Um, but he loves them. I chop it into bite-sized pieces, and he eats the whole thing. So, don't be afraid. Just because you don't like it doesn't mean he'll like it. But, like I said in rule number 3, you need to be prepared to eat it. So, you know, I'd be shocked if I heard that no one had ever had a kid, that your child had never tried to take a food off your plate. If you're eating it and it looks like you're enjoying it, your child is usually interested to see what it is. So that means trying the foods yourself. So like with his gluten-free cupcakes, I ate half of one in front of him and said, "Oh, this is good. Do you want a bite?" You need to be able to do that with your kids. That means altering some of your family meals. So maybe you have rice in your chicken soup instead of noodles or other things like that. So give some thought to making some of your family meals gluten-free and casein-free, because eventually your child's going to get older as well, and they need to be able to eat what you eat, and you need to be able to adjust your diet a little bit to fit theirs. So we have Attack of the Giant Baby. Are you going to get it? Are you going to get it? So I think it's time for me to go. But hang in there. If you have questions, if you want to know more about something, comment and I will make you a movie.